Do two wrongs make a right, Scott?
Well, the implication that I don't support the Constitution that you made notwithstanding.
I did not say that.
It gives me being an
He's
original.
just famous for being a constitutional originalist.
Here's what I think. If Democrats like Slotkin are going to come out today and whine about selective prosecutions over Tish James, her entire career is built on the selective prosecution of one man.
That's Scott Jennings absolutely dismantling CNN's emotional guilt trip over New York Attorney General Letitia James, exposing the left's sudden moral breakdown, now that one of their own is allegedly being held to the same legal standard they used against Trump for years. For so long, Democrats have allegedly used selective prosecutions as a political weapon, celebrating every indictment against conservatives as justice. But now that accountability has finally circled back to their side, suddenly it's dangerous and unfair. CNN's panel tried to paint this as some tragic political revenge, but Jennings wasn't buying it. He calmly reminded them that equal justice means everyone faces the same system, even those who built their careers weaponizing it. And honestly, it's poetic. The same crowd that spent years calling Trump a criminal for what even banks said caused no victims is now crying foul over an alleged $18,000 mortgage issue. That's not justice. That's hypocrisy collapsing in real time. Democrats loved the game when they thought they could control the rules. But now that accountability has landed on their doorstep, they're discovering what true fairness actually feels like.
There was a message from the president, right, on Truth Social to his attorney general 5 days before Jim Comey was indicted that said, Pam, what about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia, question mark, question mark, question mark. And that, of course, is referring to Letitia James. So now 2 of those 3 people have been indicted.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on something that Senator Slotkin said. She said she was warning people about the potential slippery slope of where we go from here. Perfectly fine point to make. What it misses is that we are way down a slippery slope, like way down, right? And I'm perfectly happy to say that what Trump is doing is worse than what Obama did or than what Biden did. And people will say, but but that's how slippery slopes work, right? Things get worse the further down you go on them. And there were cases that were brought against Donald Trump that have no business being brought, 0. And the answer that you get from Trump defenders is, well, they started it first, and so therefore 2 wrongs make a right. And I don't think that's a very sophisticated argument.
There's a process here. Everybody gets their day in court. Obviously, a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges. We don't know what they are, but a grand jury looked at this and says, okay, there's something here. She gets to go to court just like Comey, just like anyone else. But to me, it's just not going to fly to boo-hoo over selective prosecutions on this particular person who promised in her campaigns, who went after him on things, as Jonah said, that had no business ever happening, if not but for the man's last name being Trump. So I'm not going to.
How is that not a 2 wrongs make a right argument?
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying she gets her day in court. I'm saying a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges, and I'm saying she gets to go to court and tell her side of the story, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm just arguing the political debating issue here. Democrats are going to say, this is the first time we've ever had somebody go down the road of selective prosecutions on her? Yeah. Give me a break.
You know, it's almost hilarious watching the left suddenly discover slippery slopes now that the system they built is turning on them. For years, Democrats celebrated lawfare, turning courtrooms into campaign stages and indictments into headlines. They called it justice. But now that the same playbook is being used against their own, it's suddenly a dangerous precedent. Let's be real. This isn't revenge, it's accountability. Letitia James built her entire political brand on going after one man, Donald Trump. Long before any so-called evidence existed, she publicly claimed he was illegitimate before even taking office. That wasn't justice. That was personal. And here's the irony. A grand jury, not President Trump, decided there was enough evidence to indict her. That's the same process she weaponized for years. The same system she said was fair when it targeted conservatives. So now, when the rules she created finally apply to her, the left cries foul. But that's what equal justice looks like. Whether she likes it or not, Letitia James is facing the same standard she used to climb the political ladder. And maybe for once, accountability is finally catching up.
You know what's interesting? She named all the things she was mad at Trump over, but then she went after him on mortgage fraud as a civil case, which just always struck me as, I've just got to find something here to satisfy my political base. Also, I don't understand why being a political foe of Donald Trump makes you immune from having to follow the law. If she did it,
her case
then a jury will, adjudicate.
Her case was not an $18,000 case, was it? It was millions case. if you buy
Yeah,
that
but
there
Judge,
was
there's
fraud.
not a qualifier.
No,
The
I'm not
statement
saying
was-
that. I'm saying that
what's
was a
the
case.
standard?
That's a case that
And
any
this
prosecutor.
video,
I was a former federal prosecutor. Okay, no prosecutor would have brought this case for $18,000. It's just too small. That's the way it works.
But
for
that's not the
millions,
qualifier,
which it wasn't
Judge.
brought, this was not an indictment against Trump. It was a civil case.
She tried to bankrupt him. She tried to ruin his life and try to make it so he couldn't run for president.
So what are we going to do?
I mean,
She
come on.
brought forward a case that she thought
I
was
just-
meritorious,
I just
and
have to say-
it was found
Thank
that
God.
it
By the
was
way,
meritorious.
thank God she failed in her ultimate goal. Otherwise, we wouldn't be bringing these
But
hostages
Scott,
on
I
Monday.
mean,
That's all
but do you think that this is more of a crime with a victim than the one against Trump?
I can only read back to you her own words. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. That's what James said. That's the standard
So
she
you
applied
think
to
that
Trump.
that applies to Trump then?
I think we're.
I mean,
Absolutely.
she thought it did.
So
do
Scott,
you?
hold on. Do you think that applies to Trump? If you think it applies to her, fine.
I'm
Do you
giving
think
you
it applies to
her
Trump?
justification for
But
prosecuting
do you
him was
think
that.
do you think it
I don't know why
applies?
I don't know why they wouldn't
Listen,
apply.
as they say, two wrongs don't make a right. She's either wrong about Trump or you're wrong about Trump. Which one is it?
No, look, she brought the case. She went through the process in New York. What happened happened. Now she's got a case against her.
So
The
Trump's
process
case
will
was
play out.
legitimate then, in your
Oh,
mind?
I don't think it should have ever been brought. I think it was a travesty.
But you can't have it both ways. One
you
way
really
with Trump
can't.
and one
No.
way
They're
with
two
Trump.
different cases.
They are
And I
not. You
totally
cannot
agree.
have them two different ways.
Go ahead.
Whether you think the merits of the case are strong or weak, or how you think it's going to play out, going out tonight and crying and whining and fussing about selective prosecution when it comes to Letitia James, who ran an entire campaign saying she was going to go after Trump. The cases she brought, it was only because of Trump. I don't think the American people are going to have too much sympathy for it. But she'll get to go to court. She'll get to make her arguments. And we'll see.
You know, this right here is the perfect snapshot of media hypocrisy in full collapse. CNN's panel keeps crying political revenge, while Scott Jennings simply repeats Letitia James's own words back to them. The irony is breathtaking. This is the same standard she used to go after President Trump, accusing him of inflated property valuations that, by the way, hurt no one. Even the banks involved said they'd gladly do business with him again. There were no victims, no shattered lives, just political theater dressed up as justice. But now, when she's allegedly caught doing something similar, reportedly bending the rules on a mortgage to save a few $1,000s, suddenly the left wants compassion. Suddenly, the rule of law they weaponized for years is a witch hunt. That's the left's playbook every time accountability comes knocking. They panic, claim moral superiority, and try to guilt conservatives into silence with phrases like, two wrongs don't make a right. Meanwhile, they've discarded that moral framework long ago. They used it after the near-fatal attack on Trump. They used it during the smears against Charlie Kirk, and now they're dusting it off again for Letitia James. But facts are facts. She's finally being judged by her own rules. The same system she championed when it targeted Trump is now holding her to the same standard. That's not revenge, that's equal justice. Let me know what you think. Was Scott Jennings right to call out CNN's meltdown over Letitia James finally facing the system she helped create? Drop your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Until then, this is MN News, reminding you that accountability doesn't care about party lines, only truth. Thanks for watching.